Hello, this vlog is about relationships. I decided that it might be a good topic because we don't really get taught about relationships. We don't really get told kind of like what they are, the purpose of them, what they're for. So everything that we do know about them, we have to kind of learn from experience, and often that experience is quite psychologically damaging and traumatic for us. That it means that it has kind of long-lasting impacts afterwards that affect our relationships with other people in the future. So, when we think about school, we get taught like maths and science and English and all the kind of different subjects, geography, history. We don't really get taught about relationships. Probably one of the most important things in our lives we don't get taught. And I mean, when we think about it, like if we had have got taught, would it have made any difference? Would we have behaved any differently? Probably not. And so there obviously is kind of a reason why we're not kind of taught these things. When I think about like my college and some of my colleagues that have to be a tutor and teach pastoral things, they're very uncomfortable talking about things like this. They're very uncomfortable about trying to kind of advise students on personal things. They don't really know what to say because they themselves don't really have any more knowledge than what the students do. As a human species, we know very little about ourselves and about why we are the way that we are. And it's because a lot of people, once they finish their academic life doing subjects which are very standard, you have to elect to do subjects like philosophy and psychology and sociology and the subjects that actually tell us about ourselves and about why we behave in the way that we do. People don't generally kind of study those subjects. If you think about it, degrees in even English literature will tell you about the human condition. What do you do after you've done an English degree? What career does that really go into? You probably become a teacher. Psychology, you can be a psychologist obviously, but you can go into kind of like research, but again it's always academia. The subjects always go on to further study, further academia, sociology, philosophy. Like what actual practical careers are you going into? You're kind of going into careers that are more academic kind of based, or careers where the skills that you got from those subjects are applicable, like social work or being a police officer or whatever. So it's kind of like people neglect those subjects. They think that those aren't as important because they're not going to lead you to that career. So they don't really get selected at A-level very often. And then even past that, when you've got your degree and you've got your kind of career, or if you didn't do a degree and you got a higher apprenticeship, or you did kind of the in-house training in an employer, whatever it was that you did, people then don't educate themselves any further. It's like there's no drive to learn things. There's no kind of are you not interested in why you behave in the way that you do and the way that your own mind works? Like you're walking around with this brain inside your head that's doing things that are kind of beyond your control, and you're not interested in why that is and what it's doing. Are you not interested in why we communicate with people the way that we do it? Are you not interested in kind of how just small talk is like, why do we have small talk? Like, what's the purpose of that? Like, are you not interested in things that are around you? Like, obviously, I'm completely biased because this is my subject. Like, I'm really interested in all this stuff, and I can't understand why you wouldn't want to be. You're a human being. Do you not want to know about the human condition? Like, is that not a drive within you to kind of understand that more? Like, are you just walking around blind to everything that's around you, that you do things and you don't know why you're doing them, you don't know why other people are doing them, like you have no kind of thought process about it. Like your mind must be so empty. Like, are you obsessing over social media and what people are wearing, and like is that what's inside your head? Like, that's not what's inside my head. Like, I find that really strange that you wouldn't want to know about it. And so I've read so many books on various topics like that have I'm trying to think, like I read about history, I read about like physics, quantum physics, I read about like fiction, so English literature kind of stories. That you find out a lot about the human condition through English literature, because often authors self-insert, they put themselves into the stories, and have observed how other people are behaving and put that into the stories. I read about philosophy, read about like mythology, all kinds of things to enrich and kind of understand the human condition more. And by doing that, you kind of understand yourself a lot more, and you understand kind of how you relate to other people. So without that kind of self-education, you've got a lot of people in society that don't know themselves, don't know other people, don't know how to have a relationship, and you're kind of having to navigate around people that are like that. So relationships become quite difficult. I don't know where I'm going with this. So back to relationships and dating as well. Like, let's talk about dating first. So a lot of people beat themselves up a little bit because they're on this drive to meet somebody else, to become whole and whatever. It's like almost as if like you can't be single, like you can't have a good life without being with someone. Like, newsflash, like you don't need to be in a relationship to be happy. Like, you don't need to be with somebody to have a good life. Like, there's plenty of people, and well, let's go back to that point. So you don't need to be in a relationship to have a good life. Like, every single one of us, you know, I would assume, wants to be in a relationship with someone that fully loves them and is there for them, and you can rely on them, and you're kind of like a team, and you're going, you know, against the kind of the wind of adversity together, and you're trying to kind of build a good life together, and that you enjoy each other's company, and, you know, they're your favourite person, and you are a better person when they're around. Like, they help you grow, and you see all the kind of parts of yourself that are worth loving in their eyes, and, you know, you achieve your potential because you have that kind of confidence from them and stuff like that. Like, everyone's looking for that, I would say, but not everybody has that, and even people in relationships do not have that. You know, a lot of people settle, a lot of people kind of are looking for that, but then a few things happen. So one of them is that if you have a group of friends and all of your friends have found someone and settled down, and you're the last person in the group, and I see this a lot on dating profiles, on online dating, is I was like, oh, all my friends have settled down, and you know, I need to look for somebody or whatever. But what that says is that, so this is what you transmit to everybody else if you put that on your profile, is that all your friends are in relationships and they spend all their time with their significant others, and you're lonely and you don't have anyone to spend time with, so you need a relationship so that you don't feel lonely anymore, so that you can hang out with somebody. That's what that says about you. It says that you're not ready to be in a relationship with someone, but you're willing to find someone to fill in that gap. Now, that's not attractive, and you're not going to get a date if you put that on your profile. Or if you do, you're going to get a date with someone that's also looking for something similar. So you're going to kind of, you know, people are finding someone to fit that role rather than meeting someone and liking them, wanting to spend time with them, and then them becoming that role. It's like it's the opposite way around, which is why it doesn't work. The other reason that this kind of thing happens is that people look around them and they look at all the people that are in their lives, like friends and friends of friends and all people like that, people at work, whatever. And they'll look at the best of all of those people, and then they'll date that person that's the best out of them all, who's single and everything else. Now, the problem with that is that they might be the best of everybody that you know so far, but they're actually not very close to what you're looking for and what you actually want in a partner. So again, that's going to be incongruent, you're not going to be happy, it's not going to work. So let's have an interactive kind of activity now. Get yourself a pen and a piece of paper, and what I want you to do is pause this video and write down all of the traits of the person that you envision being with forever. So that kind of the one, you know, when we think of the one, what kind of traits do they have? Write them down, make a big list, and then pause the video. I mean, pause it first and then make the list. Yeah, and then come back. I've already wrote mine down. So, let's have a look at your list, right? Now, look at your list and cross off all the traits that are the opposite of you. Because what Jung says is that when we're looking for a partner, we look for our shadow, and our shadow is the opposite of us, so it's the rejected part of us that doesn't really get a chance to kind of shine. You're looking for that in other people, and that's not healthy. So for example, me personally, I used to be attracted to people who were younger than me, very silly, very kind of like extroverted, kind of like, you know, those kind of people that are like, oh, look at me while I do this, like I'm so happy and fun and whatever. I was attracted to those people, and the reason that I was attracted to those people is because when I was younger and I was growing up, I was very serious, and I wouldn't really allow myself to be silly like that. I would kind of reject that side of my personality. And well, as I got older and I discovered alcohol, the silly version of me would come out when I had alcohol, and that kind of made me, you know, allow myself to realise that I was hiding that part of my personality, and that I was being attracted to people that were like that because that part of my personality was so suppressed. So now I kind of give myself the opportunity in kind of, you know, controlled situations to allow myself to be silly and have fun and whatever, and not just be this serious person all the time. And similarly, like at work and stuff now, like I used to be very professional, very upper lip, and I'm not anymore because I allowed that side of my personality to come out. And, you know, my students like me more because of it. So, you know, people like you more because of it, because that's, you know, being serious and upper lip all the time is not, it's not fun to be around, is it? So, cross off all the traits that are the opposite of you, because that's not what you actually want to look for. They're all the traits that you actually want to be like more because you've suppressed them, they're in your kind of shadow. So that, maybe put a circle around them actually, because then that would indicate to you that those are the things that you need to work on to unleash in yourself, because they're in there, you're just not letting them out. Now the other things that are left on the list are probably things that are actually traits that you have, or things that you value and that you're working towards to make yourself like. So really what you're looking for is someone that's like you. And whether that's narcissistic or not, or whether that's just practical, because let's face it, if you look for someone that's like you, you're probably going to have a better relationship, aren't you? Because you're not going to clash as much. Now, the things that are on there, generally, everyone's looking for the same kind of stuff. You know, if you're an experienced online dater, like I am, you'll notice that when you look at profiles, everyone is looking for a very similar thing. Like, the top of the list is always someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously. Now, that's obvious, isn't it? Like, you don't want to be with someone that's kind of uptight and controlling. Like, we've all been in relationships where someone's been uptight and controlling, or where we've been the uptight and controlling person, and we've hated ourselves for it afterwards. Like, you don't want to be with somebody that's like that. You don't want to be like that, so you don't want to be with someone that pushes you into that role either. Like, I dated a guy who had such a strange relationship with his mum. His mum was like, she would just look after him, and he was like 20 odd, and she'd still baby him, and kind of, you know, he was the youngest child, and he'd kind of always been babied and looked after. He'd moved out of home, but yet his mum was still paying his rent, and his mum would come around and do his washing, she'd come around and bring him food. It was weird, it was such a weird kind of setup. But then with her being absent, and I was taking on that role of mother, so I was mothering him, and he was putting me in that role because of the dynamics of our relationship, so it was not healthy at all. And I became quite kind of like, I was trying to help him, trying to change him for the better. Like, never do that. Never be with someone that needs changing. Like, if you're not happy with them how they are, then do not date them. Do not go anywhere near them. Like, they will not change, and you do not have the right to change them either. Whether it is for the better or not, it does not work. It's not healthy. Do not try and change anybody. So that's one piece of advice for you that I learned the hard way. So everyone's kind of looking for someone who's easygoing. Everyone's looking for someone who has a relatively, you know, general level of intelligence. Like, you know, people will sleep with people that are dumb, but they don't want to have long-lasting relationships with someone who's dumb. Because why would you? Why would you want to be with somebody that doesn't really isn't really switched on? You're building a life together, you're making important decisions together, you don't want someone that's just reliant on you. And obviously that depends on how you are as a person, because some relationships are like that, and the man is usually the one that's in charge and makes the decisions, and is very happy that he's with a girl who doesn't have any intelligence, because then that means that he's in control and he's in power. So guys that are quite power hungry usually go for that, and vice versa as well. Women that are quite power hungry usually date guys that are quite like placid and whatever, because it complements the personalities. It's not healthy though, you know, that each person there is not a fully functioning person psychologically, so it's not great, but it works for them. What else are people looking for? Let's see. Oh, finance. Now, people don't really mention this, but if you're someone who is very good with money, you don't want to be with someone who's not good with money, because, like, it's not going to work, is it? Like, I've been in relationships with guys who have been really bad with money, and it's always been really frustrating, because it's like they live from paycheck to paycheck and they don't have any savings. And it's like, if you're a person that's doing that, you're never going to get anywhere, you're never going to progress, you're never going to kind of like see any change in your life. You're going to be stuck in that same kind of position. You're never going to get out of it, and you've got no freedom, you can't do anything, you can't go anywhere, you can't, you know, there's nothing you can do, you're stuck. Whereas if you've kind of, when it comes to like buying a house together, you're not going to be able to if that person's got no money for a deposit. Like, it's not never going to happen, nothing's ever going to happen, that relationship's never going to progress, never going to get anywhere. So you kind of need to be with someone that is on your page when it comes to finance. Otherwise, you're going to have to be the one that's paying for their living as well as your own, and that works, and people do that too. I wouldn't like that, to be honest. And I know relationships where both of them are really bad with money and it works. They're heavily in debt, but it works for them because they're both really bad at saving money or whatever. So that's going to be an important thing. The basics, like whether people actually want to get married, whether they want children or not. Like, you kind of need to figure those things out too. If you think about it, another trait that people look for is someone who is active, someone who actually goes out and does stuff. And if you think about it, this is kind of like logical, isn't it? Like, why would you want to date someone? In fact, I've been on a date with someone and all they talked about was work, because all that they did in their life was work constantly. And it's like, that might be interesting for half an hour when you're kind of talking about what they do and whatever. If they're very passionate about the work, then that's great. But if that's all you do and that's all that your life revolves around, if you go to work and come home and then sit in front of the TV all night and then go to work and do the same thing, then at the weekend you're kind of too tired to do anything, then you don't have a life, you have nothing to talk about, it's not exciting, nobody is going to want to hang out with you. Like, it's not interesting. Like, people are interested in things that you've got to talk about, the experiences that you've had, things that you've done, where you've gone, things that you've learned, things that you can pass on and whatever. And people like active people. Like, that's attractive when someone's active. What it means is they've got, when someone's active, they don't obsess over things. They don't kind of care about what you're doing, and kind of, there's been kind of like relationships where I know of people that have to ask permission to play golf on an evening with their friends, or have to kind of ask permission to go on a night out with their friends from their partner. Like, that's not healthy. That's not a healthy relationship where you have to ask the other person for permission of whether you want to do something or not. Like, that's not normal. A relationship is where you've got two people who are independent, who have decided to kind of go together on that journey, on that path. That doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice who you are and what you like to do. The reason why relationships kind of fail is because what happens is people get into a relationship, and because they enjoy spending time with that person and they're their favourite person and they like themselves when they're around that person, they kind of just spend all their time with that person, and they will forfeit what they used to do before they met that person. So they'll stop doing those kind of hobbies that they used to do, those things that used to bring them joy. They'll not spend as much time with friends because their friends are probably in relationships as well, and they're not spending as much time with their friends. Tip for you, get single friends. Single friends are always very good at reminding you of what your life was like before you got in a relationship, and that's beneficial for many reasons. But when you stop doing those things, what happens is you lose who you are as a person, and you start to kind of be with that other person and become with that other person, but then you start to become unhappy because you're not doing any of the things that you used to like doing, and all that you ever do is spend time with that person, so that you start to kind of just sit and watch TV together and not talk to each other, sit and watch a film, don't talk to each other. You've got nothing to say to each other because you're always with each other. You've got nothing to talk about, and experiences that you had and thoughts that you had about things, because you're not being stimulated in any other way apart from with that other person. It's like you start to kind of lose your identity, you lose who you are and become with that person, and it's only when you kind of, you're really unhappy and you don't know why, and you kind of think, oh, it's because I'm not the same as who I was before. Like, and neither is that other person, because they're doing the exact same thing. So what you found attractive in that person, what you liked about that person is gone. They're now just dependent on you, spend time with you, and there's nothing about, everything that was attractive about them, being active, being passionate and independent and all that kind of stuff, is gone because they're now with you in that relationship, and you're the same. So it's not going to work. Another reason why relationships don't work is because people stop putting effort in. Like, if you think about when you first date somebody, generally what people do is they make loads of effort and they show themselves in the best light, and that is attractive to somebody, and the relationship progresses and they keep spending time with each other and stuff. But once people have kind of made that decision to be in a relationship with each other, it kind of like you don't have to put as much effort in anymore, and you can kind of be a bit lazy, and you don't have to kind of like do what you did before because that person's already with you, so it doesn't really matter. And I think this comes from like, if you think about everything that's displayed in like childhood movies, it's like as soon as you find your prince, then you live happily ever after. There's no kind of like films about what married life is like and how difficult it actually is sometimes, and how you won't agree on everything, and how you've got to work through things, and how it's not, there's so many people that have affairs and get divorced, and it's just like it's like almost like they've got into a marriage and they've realised that it's not bliss and it's not happy all the time, and that that they're not, nobody knows what's normal because nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about any problems that they're having in the marriage because it's all supposed to be kept behind closed doors. Even the most kind of happily looking couples have got issues. They've got things that they don't tell everybody about, and you would never know because nothing gets talked about. And so people just feel alone in their marriage, and they feel like they can't talk about things, or in the relationship if they've not got married. Even people in relationships, they on social media they all love each other and they're taking pictures together and stuff, but what you don't realise is that the reason they're doing that is because they feel insecure, and because they feel like their relationship isn't going anywhere and they're not happy, and they kind of need to convince themselves that it is, because otherwise then they're a failure. It's always interesting. The happiest couples are the ones that you never hear anything about, the ones that just seem like they're just two mates hanging out, because that's kind of like more about what a relationship is. It's like two people who really love each other in their company, and they don't have to kind of display their affection to everybody else and on social media and whatever else. Like they just happy with each other. Like that's kind of what you should be aiming for. But like if you don't put any effort in, and you don't like, you see these people that fight and argue and are really disrespectful to each other when they're arguing with each other, and as if that's normal. Like, you have to kind of, okay, you might be emotionally reacting to something, but you need to communicate with the other person and go, right, I can't really have this conversation with you right now because I'm feeling like emotions that are not very pleasant, and I'm going to say something that's going to hurt you, and then I'm not going to mean it, and blah blah blah. You've got to kind of have that maturity to be able to communicate like that, and to kind of keep your emotions in check so that you don't have a detrimental effect on another person. And I think a lot of people haven't got to that place in their lives yet. They can't really control their emotions, and they are quite volatile to each other, and they wonder why they're insecure and why they're not happy in the relationship, because they're just not nice to each other. They say nasty things to each other all the time. Like, your relationship's not going to work, is it? Like, you should be respectful of that other person, and worship the ground that they walk on. That should be the kind of relationship you're aiming for. And I think a lot of people don't aim for that, don't kind of, because they expect that from the other person, they don't give that themselves. Like, if you want a relationship that's happy, and you communicate well and whatever, you kind of have to be the one that puts that effort in. Like, never wait for the other person to do it for you. Like, you're the one that should be making the effort, because if you both have that view and that opinion, then you're both going to make the effort anyway, so it's going to work. Whereas if you sit back and like, oh, it's for the other person to apologise, it's for the other person to kind of talk to me about it, then no one's going to talk about it, because you're both going to be thinking the same thing. Like, people generally aren't mature enough in relationships, and that's why they fail. And it's because people never give themselves a chance to work on themselves. People don't think about who they are as people, and think about kind of the negatives of their personalities and what they're going to do about them, and kind of how they're going to communicate that to somebody else. You kind of need to have that dialogue with someone that, I will be a dick in this situation if you do this, and I'm not being horrible, it's just that's the way I respond, and it's because of these things that have happened to me in the past. And to actually have that conversation, that kind of self-reflection of why you're behaving that way, people can't have that conversation because they don't know that about themselves. And so you kind of just get this icy band of communication between people. The communication is not there because there's an elephant in the room that no one talks about. So the only way to have a successful relationship is to know yourself, to know exactly what you want out of a relationship, and to go into it wholeheartedly wanting to benefit the other person as much as you want to benefit yourself. If you're not at that place, then you really shouldn't be looking for a relationship. You should be, working on yourself. You don't have to be in a relationship. If you want to be happy, then get in this relationship with someone just because, you want that attention, you want that kind of ego stroking. It's not going to make you happy in the long run. Some people complain and say, oh, dating's so hard, when you get to kind of like late 20s, early 30s, and it's never this difficult when we were younger, and they beat themselves up and they think there's something wrong with them, and get frustrated at how hard it is to meet someone when it was never that difficult before. And I think what people forget is that, when you were younger, you just kind of like, whoever you fancied, you'd just spend time with, and then you'd kind of just automatically get into a relationship with them because that's just how things rolled then. And then you'd realise that you were incompatible and you'd break up and then you'd find somebody else, and you'd kind of, you weren't really thinking badly of yourself and being insecure about things because, there was plenty more fish in the sea kind of attitude. And then, like now, if you think about how different it is when you consider what you're looking for, like you're thinking more about kind of who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Like, is this person going to be a good kind of partner, life partner? Are they going to be able to raise my children? And you're putting kind of like a lot of pressure onto finding someone that you kind of, seeing whether or not they meet those kind of like checklists that you've got, rather than kind of just spending time with somebody and kind of getting to know them. It takes about a year to get to know somebody fully, to kind of like know what they're like consistently in different situations, and only a year of spending kind of time where it's informal, like where you're like just friends and you're hanging out with other friends around as well, and people get into relationships a lot quicker than that, with people, a lot of the time now we date people that we don't know, that aren't in our friendship group, so we don't really know what they're like, and you'll date them for a bit, and after about 6 months of dating someone you'll realise that they're not what you were looking for. It's kind of like normal to kind of have lots of relationships that don't work, because how else are you going to get to know someone? You have to kind of date someone for quite a while, to kind of get to know whether they are compatible, to see whether or not they've got those traits that you're looking for in a person. Like, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't feel kind of down about the fact that you can't find someone that you're looking for. Like, there's probably loads of people that you already know that have all the qualities that you're looking for, but because you've never kind of spent time with them and got to know them, that you don't realise that they have all those qualities. You could have a great relationship with someone, you've probably already met them, but because you don't spend any time with them, you just don't see what they're like, they don't see what you're like, and it never happens. So, dating itself is flawed. It's very hard to find someone. It's normal because you're being a bit more cautious about who you date. You're not kind of just dating anyone who likes you, which is what we did when we were younger. You're kind of just looking out more for traits that are wise to pick. So, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't think like there's something deficient in you just because you're single and you can't find somebody. Like, don't settle. Wait until you meet someone that you're amazed by, that you think, wow, you're amazing. Like, I'm inspired by you. I'm in awe of you. Like, that's kind of who you want to be in a relationship with. Imagine you've got two people that see each other in that way and think, wow, this person is amazing and I'm so lucky to be with them. If you both think that, then you're going to have an amazing relationship with each other, because you're going to kind of, be grateful of each other and kind of do everything for each other and kind of, just have a great relationship. Like, do you not want that? Like, you should wait for someone that inspires you and that you're in awe of, because if you settle for something less, you are never going to be happy.